The warning sirens had been screaming for 3 hours straight. Commander Velterra stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching the tactical display with growing dread. Red dots filled the screen like a disease spreading across space. Each dot represented a bioship from the hive, and there were thousands of them. "Status report," she called out, though she already knew the answer would be bad. 12 ships remaining from our original fleet of 300, Commander," her tactical officer replied, his voice shaking. "The civilian transport Hope's Dawn is still with us, but our ammunition is running low." Velterra closed her eyes for a moment. 300 ships. The pride of the Kethmoran Defense Fleet, gone in just 2 weeks of fighting. The hive had appeared without warning, pouring out of hyperspace like locusts. Their bioships were alive, growing and healing even as they fought. Conventional weapons barely scratched them. "Commander, incoming transmission from Captain Mordek on the Starfire," the communications officer announced. The holographic display flickered to life, showing the scarred face of her oldest friend. His ship had taken heavy damage in the last engagement, and she could see smoke drifting behind him. "Velterra, my engines are failing," Mordek said quietly. "I can give you maybe one more battle, then I'm dead in space. Hold position, old friend. We'll protect you." Mordek laughed bitterly. "With what? Look around us. We're finished." The bridge fell silent except for the steady beeping of sensors and the distant hum of life support systems. Everyone knew he was right. The hive had consumed 12 star systems already, stripping every planet of organic matter. Billions of people had died, their worlds left as barren rocks floating in space. "Sir, the bioships are moving again," the sensor operator called out. "They're forming up for another attack." Velterra studied the display. The enemy vessels looked like massive insects, their hulls pulsing with veins and neural pathways. Some were the size of destroyers, others as large as space stations. They moved with perfect coordination like parts of a single organism. "How long until they reach our position?" she asked. 6 hours at their current speed." 6 hours. Not much time to prepare for their final battle. Velterra walked to the observation window and stared out at the stars. Somewhere out there, other civilizations were going about their daily lives, unaware that the hive was coming for them too. "Commander," her science officer spoke up hesitantly, "I've been analyzing their attack patterns. There might be a way to hurt them." "Speak up, Tamara." "The bioships are all connected through some kind of neural network. If we could damage their command vessel, it might disrupt their coordination." Velterra nodded. They had suspected as much, but getting close enough to the command ship would be suicide. The smaller bioships protected it like antibodies protecting an infection. "Prepare the quantum communication array," she ordered. "Send out a general distress call on all frequencies. Include our position, tactical data, and everything we've learned about the hive." "Commander, there's no one close enough to help us," her communications officer protested. "Do it anyway. Maybe someone will learn from our sacrifice." The crew worked with quiet efficiency, knowing they were preparing their own funeral. Velterra moved through the ship, visiting each section. In engineering, she found her crew working desperately to squeeze more power from their damaged reactors. In the weapons bay, technicians counted their remaining missiles and plasma charges. Not enough. Not nearly enough. The civilian transport Hope's Dawn floated nearby, protected in the center of their defensive formation. 20,000 refugees were aboard, families who had escaped the destruction of their colonies. They were counting on the fleet to save them. "Commander to all ships," Velterra announced over the fleet communication channel. "Form defensive sphere around Hope's Dawn. We make our stand here." One by one, her captains acknowledged the order. 12 battered warships arranged themselves in a protective formation around the transport. It felt like trying to stop an ocean with a handful of pebbles. "Distress call is broadcasting, Commander," the communications officer reported. "We're transmitting on all known frequencies and several theoretical ones." "Good. At least someone will know we tried." The hours crawled by. Damage control teams worked frantically to repair what they could. Weapons crews ran final checks on their systems. Medical teams prepared for casualties they knew were coming. "Contact," the sensor operator suddenly shouted. "Bioships are accelerating. They'll be in weapons range in 30 minutes. Velterra took her position in the command chair. Around her, the bridge crew prepared for battle with grim determination. They had trained for this their entire careers, but no amount of training could prepare them for fighting an enemy that treated death as just another tool. "All ships, this is Commander Velterra. Today we stand between the darkness and the light. We may not survive, but we will not yield." For the Kethmoran people, for all the innocent lives counting on us, we fight. The bioships appeared on visual display, a swarm of living nightmares rushing toward them through the darkness of space. Their hulls pulsed with alien energy, and weapon pods extended like thorns from their surfaces. "Weapons hot," Velterra commanded. "All ships engage at will." The last battle of the Kethmoran defense fleet was about to begin. 3 days of constant fighting had reduced the Kethmoran fleet to 6 ships. Commander Velterra sat in her damaged command chair, watching the tactical display through bloodshot eyes. She had not slept since the battle began. None of them had. "Commander, we've lost the Starfire," her tactical officer reported quietly. Captain Mordek's ship had finally succumbed to its wounds, taking down 3 bioships in its death spiral. "That leaves us with 5 combat vessels and the transport." Velterra nodded silently. Each loss felt like losing family. These officers had served with her for years, fighting pirates and protecting trade routes. Now they were dying one by one against an enemy that seemed impossible to kill. The bioships had pulled back after their latest assault, but they were still out there. Waiting. Watching. Like predators circling wounded prey. "Hull breach on Deck 7 is sealed," the damage control chief announced over the intercom. "But we're down to emergency power only." "Ammunition status?" Velterra asked, though she dreaded the answer. 16 plasma charges remaining. "Maybe 20 kinetic rounds," came the reply. "Not enough for another major engagement. The bioships would overwhelm them easily in the next attack." Velterra stared at the civilian transport floating nearby, its hull scarred but intact. 20,000 people inside, counting on her to save them. "Commander," the sensor operator suddenly called out, his voice filled with excitement. Multiple contacts dropping out of hyperspace. Velterra's heart sank. More bioships. The final wave to finish them off. "How many?" 7 ships, but... "Commander, these aren't bioships. The signatures are completely different." She looked at her tactical display in confusion. 7 new contacts had appeared at the edge of the system, moving toward their position. The ships were smaller than Kethmoran vessels, with angular hulls and strange energy signatures. "Any idea who they are?" she asked her communications officer. "Running the signatures through our database now." "Commander, these ships don't match any known configuration. They're completely unknown to us." Before Velterra could respond, her communication system crackled to life. A voice spoke in heavily accented Galactic Standard, the words careful but confident. "Kethmoran vessels, this is Admiral Minho of the Human Expeditionary Fleet. We received your distress call. We are here to provide assistance." The bridge fell completely silent. Every officer turned to stare at Velterra in shock. "Did he say human?" her tactical officer whispered. Velterra had heard of humans, of course. Recent intelligence reports mentioned a new species that had achieved faster-than-light travel only a few years ago. They were supposed to be primitive, barely beyond their home system. What were they doing this far into space? "Human vessel, this is Commander Velterra of the Kethmoran Defense Fleet. You should not be here. We are facing an extremely dangerous enemy. I strongly recommend you retreat to a safe distance." The response came immediately. "Commander Velterra, we understand the situation. We have been monitoring your transmissions for the past day. We are not leaving." "Admiral Minho, you don't understand what we're facing. These creatures have destroyed entire civilizations. Your ships appear to be smaller than optimal for this engagement." There was a pause before the human responded, and Velterra thought she heard something like amusement in his voice. "Size isn't everything, Commander. We prefer to think of our ships as efficient." On the tactical display, Velterra watched the human vessels approach. They moved with surprising grace, their formations tight and disciplined. As they drew closer, she got a better look at their design through the ship's telescopes. The human ships were indeed smaller than Kethmoran vessels, but they looked solid and practical. Their hulls were scarred and dented, showing signs of extensive combat experience. How was that possible for a species so new to space? "Commander," her science officer spoke up, studying the sensor readings. "These human ships are showing some very interesting technology. Their power signatures are unlike anything in our databases." "What kind of technology?" "I'm detecting what appears to be nuclear reactors, but the design is completely different from ours." "And their weapons?" "I'm reading kinetic accelerators and some kind of explosive warheads." "Primitive technology, but the readings suggested it was very effective primitive technology." "Human vessels, please state your intentions," Velterra transmitted. "We're here to help you fight, Commander." We've analyzed your tactical data. The bioships have some interesting weaknesses. You've been here for minutes? How could you possibly have analyzed anything? We've been studying your transmissions since yesterday. Your people did excellent work gathering intelligence on these creatures. We have some ideas about how to exploit their vulnerabilities. The human ships had reached their position now, taking formation alongside the remaining Kethmoran vessels. Up close, Velterra could see that while the human ships were smaller, they bristled with weapons. Every surface seemed to be covered with gun ports, missile tubes, and sensor arrays. Admiral Minho, she transmitted privately, why are you doing this? Your species barely knows us. Why risk your lives for strangers? The response came back without hesitation. Because you asked for help, Commander. Where we come from, that's reason enough. Velterra stared at the human ships on her display. 7 small vessels against thousands of bioships. It seemed impossible, but something about the humans' confidence was infectious. Bioships are moving again, her sensor operator announced. They're forming up for another attack. All human vessels, this is Admiral Minho. Battle stations. Let's show these bugs what happens when they mess with people who can't fight back. Despite everything, Velterra found herself smiling for the first time in days. The bioships came at them like a living wave of death. Velterra watched on her tactical display as hundreds of enemy vessels rushed toward their small combined fleet. Her remaining 5 ships and the 7 human vessels looked pathetically small against the swarm. All ships, weapons free, Admiral Minho's voice crackled over the communication channel. Let's see what these things are made of. The first human ship to fire was Captain Somin's destroyer. Velterra expected to see the familiar blue glow of plasma weapons or the bright flashes of energy beams. Instead, she watched streams of solid projectiles streak through space at incredible speed. What are they firing? Her tactical officer asked in amazement. Kinetic rounds, the science officer replied, studying his sensors. Simple metal slugs accelerated to tremendous velocity. But the impact force is enormous. The projectiles slammed into the leading bioships with devastating effect. Unlike energy weapons that the bioships could partially absorb and heal from, the kinetic rounds punched straight through their living hulls, creating massive wounds that sprayed organic matter into space. Direct hit on target Alpha 7, Somin reported calmly. Target is breaking apart. More human ships opened fire, filling space with streams of metal death. But they were not just firing randomly. Velterra noticed they were targeting specific points on the bioships, aiming for what appeared to be nerve clusters and vital organs. How do they know where to shoot? She wondered aloud. Unknown, Commander, her tactical officer replied. But their accuracy is incredible. Captain Jinwoo's frigate suddenly accelerated past the formation, diving straight into a cluster of smaller bioships. Instead of energy weapons, it launched what looked like ancient chemical rockets. Are those nuclear warheads? Velterra asked in disbelief. Confirmed, her science officer said, his voice filled with awe. Primitive fusion devices but very powerful. The nuclear explosions bloomed like tiny stars, vaporizing bioships and clearing large gaps in the enemy formation. The remaining bioships in that area began moving erratically, as if their coordination had been disrupted. All Kethmoran vessels, exploit the gap in Sector 7, Admiral Minho commanded. Pour fire into that opening. Velterra was amazed at how quickly the humans had adapted to their tactical frequencies and communication protocols. It was as if they had been fighting alongside each other for years. All ships, follow the human lead, she ordered her remaining captains. Target the gaps they're creating. The combined fleet pressed forward, using the chaos created by the nuclear explosions to break through the bioship formation. But the enemy was adapting too. Larger bioships moved to close the gaps, their living hulls regenerating damage almost as quickly as it was inflicted. Commander, we're getting swarmed on the port side, Captain Turan reported from the cruiser Swift Strike. 3 bioships had latched onto his hull like parasites, their acid secretions eating through his armor. Before Velterra could respond, Captain Haywan's corvette appeared alongside the damaged cruiser. Instead of trying to shoot the bioships off, she did something that made Velterra's blood run cold. Ramming speed, Haywan announced calmly. Haywan, no. Admiral Minho shouted over the comm. But it was too late. The human corvette slammed into the bioships at full velocity, her reinforced prow crushing through their organic hulls. The impact destroyed both the parasites and Haywan's ship in a brilliant explosion. Captain Haywan, respond, Minho called out, his voice tight with emotion. Silence. She's gone, Somin reported quietly. but swift strike is free. Velterra stared at the debris field where the human ship had been moments before. She had seen many acts of courage in her career, but nothing like this. The human had sacrificed herself for a ship full of aliens she had never met. Why did she do that? Velterra asked over a private channel to Admiral Minho. Because that's who we are, Minho replied simply. We don't let people die alone if we can help it. The battle continued to rage. The humans fought with a style completely unlike anything Velterra had ever seen. They seemed to treat every engagement as personal, as if the bioships had attacked their own families. When ammunition ran low, they used their ships as weapons. When their weapons failed, they improvised with whatever they had. Captain Jinwoo's crew actually boarded a damaged bioship, fighting their way through its organic corridors with primitive projectile weapons and explosive charges. Velterra watched in amazement as they planted charges at key nerve centers, crippling the massive creature from within. Human boarding party to all ships, Jinwoo's voice crackled through static. We found what looks like a central nervous system. Planting charges now. The bioship convulsed as the explosions tore through its neural pathways. Without central coordination, its weapon system shut down and it began drifting helplessly. Excellent work, Jinwoo, Admiral Minho said. Can you repeat that tactic? Negative, sir. This thing is coming apart. We need immediate extraction. 2 more human ships moved in to rescue the boarding party, their smaller size allowing them to dock with the dying bioship. They pulled out Jinwoo's team just as the creature's death throes tore it apart. All ships regroup on me, Minho ordered. We've hurt them, but there are still too many. Velterra looked at her tactical display. They had destroyed perhaps 50 bioships, but hundreds more remained. And now they had lost one of their human allies. Admiral Minho, she transmitted privately, your sacrifice today will not be forgotten. But you should withdraw now. You've done enough. The response was immediate and firm. We're not leaving, Commander. Not while there are still people to protect. The battle had been raging for 6 hours. Commander Velterra's flagship shuddered as another bioship attack tore through their weakened shields. Around her, the bridge crew worked frantically to keep their systems online. Sparks flew from damaged control panels, and the smell of smoke filled the air. Hull breach on decks 4 and 5, the damage control officer reported. Emergency bulkheads are holding, but we're losing atmosphere fast. Only 3 Kethmoran ships remained operational. The humans had lost 2 more vessels in desperate rescue attempts, leaving them with 4 ships against an enemy that still numbered in the hundreds. Yet somehow they were winning. Commander, look at the tactical display, her science officer said with excitement. The bioships are losing coordination. Velterra studied the screen. The enemy formation was becoming ragged. Bioships were colliding with each other, firing at empty space, moving in confused circles. The humans had been systematically targeting what they called nerve clusters, disrupting the hive mind that controlled the swarm. Admiral Minho, your strategy is working, she transmitted to the human flagship. Their coordination is breaking down. We noticed, Minho replied, his voice strained. But we're not done yet. Massive contact approaching from hyperspace. Velterra's blood turned to ice as her sensors detected the new arrival. A bioship the size of a small moon emerged from hyperspace, its surface covered in weapon pods and neural relays. This was clearly the command vessel they had theorized about, the brain controlling the entire swarm. All ships, this is Admiral Minho, the human commander's voice crackled over the comm, that's our target. If we can take that thing down, the whole swarm dies with it. Minho, that ship is 10 times larger than anything we've faced, Captain Somin protested from her battered destroyer. Our weapons can't penetrate something that size. Maybe not from the outside, Minho replied grimly. But everything has a weakness. Velterra watched in horror as the human ships began accelerating toward the massive command vessel. They were going to attempt a direct assault against impossible odds. Admiral, don't do this, she pleaded. Your sacrifice won't save us. That thing will destroy you before you get close. Maybe, Minho admitted. But we have to try. Captain Jinwoo, you still have those nuclear charges from the boarding operation? Affirmative, sir. 12 fusion warheads, but they're designed for internal detonation. We'd need to get them inside that thing somehow. Then that's what we'll do. Somin Haeyong, give us covering fire. Draw attention away from Jinwoo's approach. The 2 remaining human destroyers swept toward the command vessel's flanks, unleashing everything they had. Kinetic rounds and nuclear missiles exploded against the bioship's hull, creating spectacular displays of destruction. but the massive vessel barely seemed to notice the attacks. Captain Jean Wu's frigate dove straight toward the command ship center, where sensor readings showed the highest concentration of neural activity. Weapon pods tracked his approach, filling space with organic projectiles and energy beams. Jean Wu's ship is taking heavy damage, Velterra's tactical officer reported. He's not going to make it. But the human captain had one more trick. Instead of trying to land on the bioship's surface, he fired his ship's entire supply of nuclear warheads directly into what appeared to be a massive organic intake port. Warheads away, Jean Wu reported calmly as his ship began to break apart under enemy fire. Proximity fuses set for maximum penetration. The nuclear explosions bloomed inside the command vessel like flowers of destruction. The bioship's hull convulsed as the fusion fire tore through its neural pathways and vital organs. But it was still intact, still dangerous. "It's not enough," Somin said desperately. "The damage isn't critical." "Then we make it critical," Admiral Minho announced. "All remaining ships ramming speed. Target the breach Jean Wu created." "Sir, that's suicide," Captain Hae-young protested. "Maybe. But those people on the transport ship deserve a chance to live. Load every remaining nuclear warhead into our cargo bay. If we're going down, we're taking this thing with us." Velterra watched helplessly as the human ships accelerated toward the damaged command vessel. Somin's destroyer went first, diving into the breach like a spear. Her ship disappeared inside the bioship's hull in a flash of nuclear fire. Somin's charges detonated inside the neural core, the science officer reported. Massive internal damage, but it's still functional. Admiral Minho's flagship was next, loaded with every nuclear warhead his remaining ships could spare. The massive bioship's defenses focused on his approach, filling space with deadly fire. His ship took hit after hit, pieces of hull spinning away into space. "Minho, pull back," Velterra pleaded. "You've done enough." "Not yet," the admiral replied, his voice calm despite the destruction around him. "For everyone who can't fight for themselves." His ship struck the breach at full speed, disappearing into the bioship's interior. For a moment nothing happened. Then the command vessel began to convulse as explosions rippled through its entire structure. "Neural pathways are collapsing," Velterra's science officer reported in amazement. "The entire network is shutting down." All around them the bioships began to change. Their coordinated movements became erratic, then stopped altogether. Some began attacking each other. Others simply drifted helplessly in space. "The hive mind is broken," Velterra whispered. "They're just animals now." Captain Hae-young's corvette, the last human ship, limped back toward their formation. "All Kethmoran vessels, the swarm is vulnerable. Now's our chance to finish them." With the bioships confused and uncoordinated, the final cleanup was almost easy. But as Velterra watched the enemy vessels being systematically destroyed, all she could think about was the price that had been paid. The humans had saved them all. Commander Velterra stood in the observation deck of her damaged flagship, watching the cleanup operation in stunned silence. Scattered pieces of bioships drifted through space like the remains of some terrible nightmare. Without their hive mind to guide them, the surviving creatures had become nothing more than confused animals, easily picked off by the rescue fleets that were now arriving from across the galaxy. "Final casualty report, Commander," her tactical officer said quietly behind her. "We lost 8 Kethmoran vessels and their crews. The humans lost 6 ships out of 7. 6 out of 7. An entire fleet destroyed to save people they had never met." Velterra closed her eyes, remembering Admiral Minho's final transmission. His calm voice as he flew his ship into certain death, loaded with enough nuclear explosives to crack a moon. "What about survivors?" she asked. Captain Hae-young and 32 crew members from the corvette Defiant. "That's all that's left of the human expeditionary fleet." Velterra turned to face her officer. "Bring Captain Hae-young aboard immediately. I want to speak with her." An hour later, Captain Hae-young stood in Velterra's ready room. The young human woman looked exhausted, her uniform torn and stained with smoke. But her eyes were clear and determined. "Captain, I want to offer my deepest condolences for your losses," Velterra began. "Your admiral and crews died as heroes." Hae-young nodded solemnly. "Thank you, Commander. They died doing what they believed in." "I have to ask you something, Captain. Why did you come here? Your species barely knows us. You had no obligation to help." The human woman looked surprised by the question. "We received your distress call. People were in danger. What other reason did we need? But the risk to your own people was acceptable," Hae-young finished firmly. That's what we do. It's who we are. Velterra stared at this young human captain, trying to understand a mindset so different from anything she had encountered in her military career. Most species weighed costs and benefits carefully before committing resources to help strangers. But these humans had simply heard a cry for help and responded without hesitation. "Commander," her communications officer's voice crackled over the intercom. "Priority transmission from Kethmoran High Command. They want a full report on the engagement." "I'll take it in here," Velterra replied. She activated the holographic display, and the stern face of Admiral Kexterra appeared in the room. "Commander Velterra, we received fragments of your transmissions. What is your status?" "The Hive threat has been eliminated, sir. The civilian transport and 20,000 refugees are safe." Admiral Kexterra's expression showed surprise and relief. "Eliminated? How is that possible? Our intelligence suggested the bioships were unstoppable." Velterra glanced at Captain Hae-young, then back at her superior officer. "We received unexpected assistance, sir. A human fleet responded to our distress call." "Humans?" The Admiral looked confused. "But they're barely a spacefaring species. How could they possibly—" "They saved us all, sir," Velterra interrupted. 6 human ships sacrificed themselves to destroy the Hive command vessel. Without their intervention, this entire sector would have been consumed. She spent the next 20 minutes giving her full report, describing the humans' tactics, their weapons, and most importantly, their willingness to die for complete strangers. Admiral Kexterra listened in growing amazement. "This changes everything," he said finally. "I'm ordering immediate diplomatic contact with the human government. These people must be properly honored." After the transmission ended, Velterra's communications officer appeared at her door again, looking overwhelmed. "Commander, we're receiving messages from across the galaxy. News of the battle is spreading through every communication network." "What kind of messages?" "Requests for human assistance mostly. The Zephyrian Republic is asking if humans can help with their pirate problem. The collective worlds want human ships to escort their trade convoys. There are at least 40 different requests for military aid." Captain Hae-young looked uncomfortable. "Commander, we only have one ship left. 32 crew members. We can't possibly respond to all those requests." But Velterra was already thinking ahead. She had seen something today that would reshape galactic politics. A species that valued life over profit, courage over caution. The humans had just announced themselves to the galaxy in the most dramatic way possible. "Captain, I want you to know that this battle will be remembered. Your people's sacrifice will become legend." "We didn't do it for glory," Hae-young replied quietly. "We did it because it was right." Over the following weeks, Velterra's prediction came true. The story of humanity's intervention at Valdris spread throughout known space faster than any news in galactic history. Species that had never heard of humans were suddenly asking about this new player on the galactic stage. The report that Velterra transmitted to the Galactic Council became required reading at every military academy. She had written, "Today a species we barely knew existed saved us all. The humans did not ask about our politics, our resources, or what they might gain from helping us. They simply saw beings in danger and acted without hesitation. They appeared when all hope was lost, fought against impossible odds, and gave their lives for strangers. If this is the character of humanity, then the galaxy has gained something precious." Captain Hae-young's small corvette limped back toward human space, carrying word of what had happened. Behind her, rescue fleets from a dozen different species worked to evacuate the survivors and study the destroyed bioships. But the real impact was just beginning. Across the galaxy, species that had dismissed humanity as primitive newcomers were now reconsidering their assumptions. Distress calls began, including a specific request: "Please forward this message to any human vessels in the area." The legend of humanity had been born in the fire of sacrifice and courage. They were no longer just another species learning to navigate galactic politics. They were the ones who came when no one else would. The ones who answered every call for help, no matter the cost. And in the depths of space, more human ships were already responding to new distress calls, carrying on the tradition that Admiral Minho and his crews had died to establish.